as much oxygen as you would be getting if you were spending time in, you know, in nature. And then also in colder climates, you're getting a lot less sunshine, so you're getting a lot less vitamin D. Okay, so let's talk about that cellular deprivation, right? So a lot of the foods that we consume also are robbing our body of oxygen. If you're eating a diet that is laden in mucus forming foods, the mucus itself is literally suffocating the cells. Mucus suffocates cells. Okay, so if you're eating a lot of processed foods, you know, sugary foods, you're suffocating the cells. If you're not eating enough foods that have a lot of chlorophyll, you know, a lot of fresh foods, and on top of that, you're not drinking enough water, the cells are suffocating. Okay, so this is causing mucus to form. And what mucus does is it blocks blood flow. Well, what does blood flow do for the body? Blood flow provides blood, which carry, well, duh. It provides oxygen. It provides oxygen, right? Doesn't blood send nutrients and oxygen throughout the body? So if you have this mucus covering the cells, you have a barrier that's stopping the oxygen from reaching the cells. So what happens over time when oxygen cannot reach the cells is it will begin to cut off the blood supply, which is cutting off the oxygen supply. It's cutting off the nutrient supply. So then that part of the body is like, hey, what's going on? I'm hungry. I'm starving. I can't breathe, right? And then what happens when it can't breathe? What happens when it's not getting that rich oxygen, when it's not getting those nutrients, right? It's suffocating. So as a part of it suffocating, then it begins to change shape and change form. Because it can't breathe, it's just holding on to the last bit of life, fighting. The cells are fighting for the last bit of life that they can have. And not only that, the parasites are able to come in and take over. The bacteria is able to multiply and take over. The candida is able to come in and take over. What is candida? Candida is mold. Candida is mold inside of the body. Okay? So when you're not consuming a lot of rich oxygen foods, you're consuming a lot of mucus forming foods, you're not drinking enough water, you're creating a lot of mold inside of the body, you're creating a breeding ground for bacteria inside of the body, you're creating a breeding ground for parasites in the body, and you're cutting off the body's oxygen supply. See, we already have a problem because, for one, we don't use our full lung capacity, especially for those of us who don't work out consistently, right? We don't use our full lung capacity, and then our lungs become filled and crowded with mucus oftentimes as a result of the foods that we eat, as a result of not exercising enough. And so we're already not getting enough oxygen supply through the breathing, but then when we add the mucus forming foods on top of it, then we're really creating a dangerous breeding ground for cancer, okay? So, you know, a lot of us are dealing with obesity. There's no surprise that we're dealing with obesity and cancer at such alarming rates. And this is because when you're dealing with obesity, you're dealing with a body that has been overridden by candida. You're dealing with a body that's been overridden by bad fat. You're dealing with a body that has been overridden by mucus. Okay? And you're dealing with a body that has been holding on to accumulated waste, which is a breeding ground for bacteria, which is a breeding ground for disease. Okay? So it's absolutely essential that we go back to the basics. Okay? Now, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of people who also live very healthy lives. They eat right. They drink the proper amounts of water. You know, they do different things, but then sometimes you can be dealing with cancer due to your environment. Okay, what we don't realize as a result of the lifestyle that we're living, in terms of living in these boxes, living indoors and using so much electronics, we're getting hit with so much electronic smog, so much ELFs and EMFs, so much frequency, so much radiation that is causing our cells to mutate. Our cells aren't prepared. We are over time mutating to be a part of this new technological world that we're creating, but at the same time, it's still an adjustment. So it's going to take some time before our bodies realize, like, hey, we're living alongside this technology. So in that time of adjusting, we're going to have a lot of our bodies malfunctioning, because the natural blueprint designed for man is to live within a rainforest lifestyle, is to consume a certain amount of water, is to consume fruits and vegetables that are made from the tree, okay? We also have to be mindful of the fruits and vegetables that we're eating. You could be eating fruits and vegetables, but are you eating, GMO fruits and vegetables, which is basically plastic? Are we eating fruits and vegetables that have been sprayed with tons of chemicals? Because if you are, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. You want to eat organic fruits and vegetables, okay? Organic fruits and vegetables that are non-GMO, that have not been manipulated. See, at the end of the day, a lot of things have been manipulated, but we are still made by God. We are still made by God, which means we are still within the sphere of God's natural law. And God naturally created certain foods for us to consume. Okay? And a large part of that food is green foods. If you look at the earth, you look at yourself, you should be replicating the earth. You should have a large amount of water in your system and a large amount of green. You on the inside should be blue and green, like the earth is blue and green. We are a container, right, of 70% liquid, 30% mass, right? And so we need to make sure that our container is kept full. That way we can continue to eliminate waste. That way we can continue to provide the body with the proper amount of nutrients, oxygen. Oxygen is our number one food source. See, we can survive without food. We can go days without eating, but we cannot go days without oxygen, okay? So we have to begin also to take deep breathing. But when our air is so polluted because there's so much chemicals, when our air is so polluted because there's not enough trees, like if you're living in New York City, you're living in Chicago, these heavily, these cities that are very citified, with all the big buildings and, all this stuff and not enough nature, you're going to be hungry. You're going to be hungry for oxygen. Okay, so it's important that we also just take that time to get out in nature as best as we can. Find those parks. Go for a daily walk. Go for, if you can go to a park 3 times a week, 4 times a week, and just breathe. Take in that oxygen. Got to make sure that you're drinking half your body weight in ounces a day. Okay, you got to make sure that you're eating a big salad every day. Every day. You have to take time away from the electronics. Turn off the Wi-Fi while you're sleeping. Don't sleep with your phone next to your bed, okay? Also, if you are sleeping with your phone, if you even have a bed, right? Because radiation is a huge part of why we're dealing with cancer at such alarming rates. So let's say you have a bed that has springs in it and you sleep with your cell phone under your pillow. You're putting yourself at risk of brain cancer. You're putting yourself at risk of cancer overall. Why? Because those springs inside of your bed are amplifying the radiation in your phone. Okay? So I always recommend to get a CertaPure memory foam mattress. CertaPure memory foam